Hey everybody, I am on video and unmuted. I am joined, well, first of all, I'm Zach Seward. I am a managing editor here at CoinDesk. I'm joined by my fellow managing editor and most influential leader, fearless leader, Ben Schiller. Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Zach. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, man. I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there.
Looking
How
good.
about you?
A little tired after all the work with this package, but it's good that it's finally done. So I'm pretty happy.
Very cool. So if you're watching this now, you are tuned into CoinDesk Live. This is the most influential 2020 reveal show. Thanks for joining us. We're going to have a lot of stuff in store today. We're going to talk about this list as an annual tradition that we do at CoinDesk, talking about the folks in the industry who have had the biggest years. So that's what this package is about, and that's what we're happy to talk about. Also important to note, we're doing a cool thing this year with NFTs. We have non-fungible tokens representing the art that is in each of these pieces. We're going to auction 12 of these pieces on the Nifty Gateway with 50% of all proceeds going to charity. I think that's pretty cool, Ben. How did that come to be?
Yeah, so we wanted to do some original artwork. It's something we do every year, and NFTs really had a breakout year this year. There were some major sales on some of the platforms. So we thought it was appropriate to call upon some of those top NFT artists to do these pieces and to get kind of a broad range of kind of styles and approaches. And we're pretty happy with the results. You'll be able to see those on the site.
Got it. So before we dig into this most influential list, again, a yearly tradition at CoinDesk, I did want to ask about the process, Ben.
Yeah.
What's the methodology here? How did this work? You helmed this process for many months. What is our methodology in naming the 10 to 12 top folks of the year?
Sure. So first of all, it's not an all-time influencer list. So, Vitalik Buterin has been nominated in a previous year. So he's not on the list this year because we're looking for people who had a special impact this year and who haven't been nominated previously. We're also looking to kind of showcase the broad variety of interesting people in this space. So that's everyone from, DeFi entrepreneurs to regulators to some government officials even. And various sort of personalities, like, for instance, Michael Saylor is nominated as the person who really sort of kickstarted this trend of Bitcoin for mainstream treasury management in companies. So that's one thing. And secondly, we want to have a broad range of people. So we have people like Andre Cronje, Hayden Adams, who are DeFi entrepreneurs, and then people like I'm going to mispronounce his name, but Joe Xuan. He's a former head of China's central bank and a prime mover on their national digital currency project, which is a very important project. Not exactly Bitcoin, but still very much within the kind of bailiwick of what we cover here at CoinDesk.
Gotcha. So yeah, let's talk about some of the winners. I mean, let me work some Zoom magic here and share my screen. I'm going to share a screen that will show all of the winners. And this is the big reveal. These pieces, they just went live minutes ago. This is the hottest content on the internet right now. So get ready, folks.
Sure.
This is the list of the 2020 CoinDesk most influential. Ben, give me a nod if you're seeing that.
I'm seeing that.
All right, cool. So let's talk about a few of these names. You mentioned some of them, some standout names on this year's list for sure. An interesting mix of characters. Talk to me about the Jesse Powell inclusion. I think that's an interesting one. That's a longtime Kraken CEO. Why was this his year as opposed to any other previous year that he's been involved in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, Kraken is obviously a massive key company in this industry, and Jesse Powell is a long-time player. He goes back to the earliest days. This year, they won a sort of banking license in Wyoming, which is part of a trend of major crypto companies becoming banks or taking on banking services. So we're really seeing he really kind of represents the convergence of mainstream finance banking with this crypto world. And we wanted to put him on the list. He could have been nominated in previous years, but the Wyoming get for Kraken is massive and part of a big trend. So.
Got it. And some other ones, obviously, Balaji. We're going to be hearing more from my colleague Mark later in the show about that piece and what he's been doing on a number of fronts this year in social media. Who's someone on this list that surprised you? Who did you think? Who was like the dark horse candidate for the 2020 most influential inclusion?
Yeah, I mean, the Chinese guy Joe. I mean, whose name I can't pronounce. Someone probably is not a household name. He's a Chinese official, and they're not known for being particularly public in their sort of profile. But under the radar, you could argue that he's maybe the most influential person on this list because China's digital currency project is going to have massive kind of geopolitical implications, and he's the man that's really made that happen. China's CBDC project is miles ahead of any other countries, and we wanted to highlight that, even though, as I said before, it's not exactly Satoshi's vision, but it is very much in that kind of realm of decentralization and money moving to the internet natively.
Got it. So I want to ask you, is this like, I think there's an interesting methodological question. Like, is this the peak year for these folks? Is it all downhill from here, or is this like how do we calculate it? Because I know, like, Jack Dorsey was on the list last year. He can't be on it this year. Sergey Nazarov of Chainlink fame was on the list last year. Had a big year this year.
Yeah.
Talk to me about some of the rules as to, like, why your favorite crypto figurehead isn't on this list this year.
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, this is a little bit arbitrary, and we do have a reader survey, and then we have an editorial process, but it isn't sort of scientific, and we want to have a balance of people. I mean, we don't know what the future's going to hold for these people. So when we nominated Nazarov last year, it seemed like he was doing pretty big things, but Chainlink has obviously had a massive year this year. So yeah, we're just looking for people who kind of exemplify the zeitgeist or the kind of year in crypto. And we feel pretty good about this list as a kind of representation of that.
Got it. And so this is the list. There's 12 folks, 12 great pieces from everyone across the CoinDesk newsroom and also some outside contributors. What's a piece that, you had a fun time editing, Ben?
Well, I mean, we're going to hear from him in a minute, but Mark Hogstein's piece about Balaji Srinivasan, who's a former CTO at Coinbase and isn't exactly in the crypto world now, but is very much sort of part of it. I think the piece is really, really, really interesting because it takes in COVID and how Balaji was kind of an early siren for the COVID alarm, and talks about his critique of the media and of kind of information flows in society generally, which is sort of a key issue for the kind of future of the internet and the kind of bigger reasons why we're all doing this. So he's a fascinating character, and he had a big, interesting year. So that was one I would definitely read before the other ones.
Awesome. So we are joined by one of the listed, the winner. Do we call them winners? We're joined by one of the winners this year, Chad Cascarilla, who's the CEO of Paxos. Chad is a longtime crypto fixture, but this year was especially pronounced for him and his company because they are the back end powering the PayPal excitement in the crypto markets over the last few months. So we thought, what better year to showcase the work that they've been doing for a long time than with this recent PayPal development. So I'm gonna welcome Chad to the show. I hope he's live. I hope his sound is up. Chad, how you doing?
I'm great. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
There we go. Big enough microphone. We should be able to hear.
That's a nice microphone. We're going to hear some songs, some Elvis impersonations out of you before the show's over.
Oh, I was just going to do some late night talk show.
Oh, nice. This is who's your talk show host of choice, by the way?
Fraser Crane, of course.
Oh, okay. Is that a fictional character? I must admit that's Fraser.
You don't remember? Yeah.
I never got into Kelsey Grammer. That's who we're talking about, right? No, I never got into it. So anyway, thanks for joining us. You are certainly a deserving honoree this year for landing a big fish in the crypto brokerage market. Can you talk to me about the PayPal development and what that meant to you guys as a company this year?
Well, I mean, it was obviously.
We lost you on there. You're muted at the moment. There we go.
Back now. It was a huge validation for Paxos as a company and for, frankly, the industry in general. I mean, they're the largest payments firm in the world in terms of 350 million consumers and businesses, and having them come into the crypto space is a validation of the idea that we can be a mainstream industry, that this can change people's lives, not just in the early adopter community, and not just in the, this really exciting petri dish that we've been living in every day for the last 10 years, but really to take the next step where we're impacting not tens and tens of millions of people's lives, but billions of people's lives. And that's what I think the promise of crypto is. And that's what I think PayPal coming into the space is at the vanguard of. And so for us to be able to power that as infrastructure is a validation of our business model, which has always been built around how can we enable a mainstream adoption to happen, and how can we be the regulated platform that enables that.
Got it. So some of my colleagues like to riff on PayPal as being sort of crypto light, right? This idea that, when I buy some stuff in PayPal, those aren't my keys. That's not my coin. The long time Bitcoin adage. To people who critique this early rollout from companies like PayPal, what do you say to them? You're obviously well versed in some of the Bitcoin mythology, so about like the importance of like self-sovereignty and being your own bank. But when people come up to you and they're like, well, this isn't really crypto. Well, PayPal is cool, but this isn't really crypto. What do you tend to say to those folks?
Well, you have to crawl to walk to run. And when you're a large company and you're PayPal, they did something that they have never really done before, which is enable a store of value. That's not just a payment wallet. And so that's not easy to do. And, you have to do things in phases. And so I don't know where all of their phases are going to take them. But to say, hey, it's not enough is a little bit like saying, I should have gotten more presents from Santa Claus. They came out and they did some really great things, some big things for us as an industry, some real validation. Dan Schulman has been on CNBC talking about what crypto can mean. They put out a 2-page press release. This is not something that they're doing as a hobby. This is something they're very committed to. And so I think that the jury is way too early to make that type of indictment, especially of someone who's now really offering something that no one expected was going to be able to be happening 6 months ago or 12 months ago. And, I think there's a number of firms where partly this is about acculturating a whole new set of users to what crypto even is. And self-sovereignty is important, and we shouldn't take away from that. But I'm not sure that we should be so quick to be judging what is still very early steps for them and for all these other mainstream adopting companies.
Cool. So in the piece, which just went live on CoinDesk.com, great website. In the piece, you mentioned that in the next year, you see something like a 10x size adoption increase from where we are now. And I wanted to sort of pick your brain as to what are the how do you see that unfolding over the course of 2021? What does that look like? Is this more PayPal's? Is this more broad awareness of existing offerings? What's your view of how we get to that number that you mentioned in the piece, that 10x growth in adoption?
Well, I think that it's going to be a number of different areas. The first is there's obviously technology and fintech firms that have been early adopters of this technology amongst kind of the first mainstream wave. And just as importantly, when we look at our pipeline, we look at the firms we're talking with, these are mainstream financial institutions, banks, broker dealers, payment companies, remittance firms. And so, I think it's very, very possible when we just look at what our pipeline has today versus a year ago. Our pipeline is maybe 100x or 1,000x larger. And having some of that convert through, just like PayPal has, can lead to billions of people using this technology in the next 12 to 18 months. That is just a real unbelievable shift. And it's something that the industry and we have been working at for a very long time, and is really the whole point of what we're trying to do. And so there's going to be phases to this. Getting banks and brokers, which should now be easier to do because of all this OCC guidance that's come out from Brian Brooks, who's really been pushing, I think, the envelope in many ways to get federal regulators to open up to this technology. Means it's now possible for institutions that have been part of the traditional financial system to be able to think about how can they offer this to their customers. And we're seeing that too. So it's going to be a lot bigger than just some of the firms that have done great things so far: Square, SoFi, Revolut, Robinhood, PayPal. Really big, really large firms. It's going to continue on from there.
Got it. So, Paxos has long been about being a very well-regulated player in what had been a fairly unregulated industry. I wanted you to like leak some regulatory alpha for our audience here. What are sort of like the regulatory fault lines that you're following in the next 12 months? What should we be attuned to in the regulatory conversation going forward?
Well, there's a number of them. There's an alphabet soup of regulators just in the United States, let alone globally. And so, and then you have global bodies. So it's really hard to draw one thread out. But I think what's clear is there's going to be more regulation, because when you have more adoption, there's going to be more oversight. And that needs to happen in the right way. So I think what the industry needs to do, and certainly what we've spent a lot of time trying to do, is to engage regulators, to educate them, to let them understand what this technology is capable of doing, how it can change inclusion, how it can change the way services are delivered, the way it can change the costs, free up capital, so many powerful things that it can do. And so each asset class, whether it's say crypto or whether it's stable coins or whether it's tokenized assets, has a different regulatory regime. Equities is different from bonds. You can go on and on. And so you have to talk with the different regulators about this. But what's important is making sure that we create a regulatory framework where there is passportability, say just in the United States, passportability and consistency, and there is a right level so that we're not stifling innovation. And that's not a necessarily easy thing to get right. It's easy to overstep, possibly stifle innovation, push things overseas, push things into darker corners, and you could actually end up with a less safe financial system by trying to make crypto more safe.
Mm-hmm. I think since we last spoke for the piece, the whole Stable Act was proposed and stirred up a lot of these conversations in Washington and elsewhere. What's your take on the Stable Act? Do you think that will be a productive opportunity to like inform regulators, as you say, or do you think this is the first of many fights that the industry is going to have to engage in?
And you're talking the Stable Act, the one that was proposed in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, the proposed in the House. This is absolutely in proposal state, but there was a ton of conversation around this and whether or not it was indeed one of those oversteps. So I was just curious about your take on the Stable Act.
Well, I think it's coming out of the House, and we're nearing the end of the year, and so I think it's interesting that they put forward this type of regulatory oversight. Now, at the end of the day, I'm not sure that the proposal they put forward is going to strike that right balance. And so I think that there is, an earnest effort to make sure that we create a trustworthy new financial system as we replatform and base it on crypto and blockchain. And so that is, I think, a good instinct. It's certainly one that we've been supporters of from the very beginning, being the first trust that was approved by the New York Department of Financial Services to operate in crypto and blockchain in May of 2015. We started working on that in 2012. Ethereum didn't even really exist then. So, we've been very much proponents of trustworthiness and regulation as a way to drive mainstream adoption. But I think in that particular case, the bill probably needs to be fine-tuned and tailored and really adjusted in a way that can make sure that we allow the innovation to happen. Because the last thing you want to do is be cutting off, for instance, stablecoin innovations. There are so many new ways to create money now because of this technology. Different types of privacy, different types of anonymity, different ways in which you can have supply constraint, different ways in which you could have openness and decentralization, just huge changes. And the only way you can figure out exactly what are the right way to do these different types of money is to experiment with them, to be able to have something that doesn't become systemically risky, but nonetheless has a sandbox around it. And so there's a way to do that without saying, guess what, everyone should become a bank. That is a level of oversight and regulation that can just about kill any type of innovation. And that's because that's a mature industry. That's a framework for something that's mature and the product set is known, not where you're in discovery mode and you're trying to learn things. And so regulation has to follow the stage for technology and for an industry, and not sit there and kind of really constrict what is still very, very early days.
Got it. So we got a few minutes left. We're going to zoom out a little bit from the regulatory conversation, just get a little higher altitude and take a glance at 2021. From where you sit, again, you're well positioned within the industry, have a hand in a lot of businesses over at Paxos. What are you excited about for the coming year? What are you paying close attention to? And if we're having this conversation next year, what are the big trends that you think we're talking about?
I mean, so clearly for me, the big trend is that we're seeing is crypto brokerage. And that's a product that's really a turnkey solution where firms can come in, rely on our regulatory licenses, rely on us as a custodian, rely on our liquidity in order to be able to create a turnkey opportunity for them to engage with their customers in a different way, to be able to offer them crypto products. It's one where they are able to have a different type of relationship and perhaps in many cases an additive relationship and drive new customers. And I think that is really, this is the right moment for crypto brokerage because we're at that shift in the adoption curve for crypto. And so that's exciting. I mean, it's been a long time coming. It's still early days. It has a market cap of 350 or whatever, $450 billion in crypto at the moment. That's still quite low compared to where I think we can see this go. It could easily be 10x from here. And firms are recognizing that, and this is an asset class that's going mainstream. You see smart institutional money buying it, Stanley Druckenmiller, Paul Tudor Jones. You have mutual funds, you have Guggenheim, you go on and on. There's insurance companies I can tell you I know of, and asset managers that haven't come public yet. This is going mainstream, and that's a big deal, and people want to be a part of it. I think also, tokenized dollars is a huge thing. Right now, it's been mainly driven by people needing to have dollars that move as fast as their crypto moves. But what'll be even more exciting is when you can use tokenized dollars to buy goods and services. And I think we're right on the cusp of that happening. That might be at the end of this year, I guess the end of next year. I don't want to skip steps here. So at the end of 2021. And then I think we start to get into really tokenizing assets becoming a big theme into 2022. So there's adoption curves that we're going through. And right now is the moment in time and moment in the sun for crypto, I believe.
My reporter antenna went up when you said insurance, unannounced insurance companies and asset managers who might be doing something. I hope my colleague Ian Allison is listening so he can poke around, see what's up. But Chad, thanks so much. Congratulations on your strong year and have a happy holiday season going forward. Thanks for joining us.
You too. Thanks for having me. Great to be on with you.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon, I hope.
Bye-bye.
All right, cool. We're going to change gears a little bit. We're going to toss it to my colleague, Mark Hochstein. Mark, are you there? Mark, are you there?
Hi, Zach. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you doing?
I'm looking forward to 2020 being over.
Yeah, it's been a rough year.
About that, but I am excited about this series of articles we just published. It's a lot of hard work, and I think it's a really compelling package.
Yeah, I think your piece certainly stands out among the package, right? You profiled, I don't know about, controversial Balaji Srinivasan, the former Coinbase CTO and entrepreneur of many past lives who really had a standout year, kind of a crossover breakout moment for Balaji. And I was curious, what's the TLDR of your piece right now?
Well, I think that this story is, in a way, it's really the story of 2020. Balaji is a true polymath. We know him as a former VC, as an angel investor, as an entrepreneur in the crypto space, as a former CTO of Coinbase. But, he has several STEM degrees. He, back in the day, started a genetic testing company, which he sold for, or was sold eventually for a significant amount of money. He is very conversant in a lot of different areas of science, and this came in handy in January when we first started hearing the reports of COVID coming out of China. He was paying very close attention. He was, and I should note, he's sort of on a quasi sabbatical. He left Coinbase in 2019. So he's been taking some time off, but you wouldn't know it from his Twitter. And he was taking COVID seriously well ahead of the authorities and the media in the West, or in the US in particular. He was looking at the early scientific literature. He was reading the signals that were coming out of China. And he was sounding the alarm pretty early on that this was going to be serious. This was potentially a pandemic. It wasn't just the flu. It wasn't just a China thing. And, on a very practical level, I think that benefited the companies who know him. He's personally an angel investor in a number of companies. It benefited the people in the crypto community who followed him, because a lot of them, as one entrepreneur explained to me, started getting ready for the possibility that this could be a real serious thing worldwide. And they were preparing. They were looking at remote first. If they weren't remote first already. So he really was like the Paul Revere figure in this story. He was sounding the alarm.
Why? Like, what's your understanding of why he became so convinced so early that this was going to be a bigger deal than most people had thought?
I think part of it, if you listen to the video recording that's embedded in my article, he was looking at actions that speak louder than words. So, the fact that they put Wuhan on lockdown, that was a very strong signal, particularly from the government that is puts a very high priority on economic development. To do that, that spoke louder than any reassurances that we were getting from the authorities over there. And again, he knows how to read the scientific literature. So he was looking at those early, he was looking at Johns Hopkins, he was looking at the Lancet. He wasn't just listening to the authorities in this country who were saying relatively calming things. Like, he was looking at what the science was saying, and it was sending some fairly concerning signals as early as early mid-January.
Got it. And he the interesting thing to me is that he famously took on the media in this process, right? Famously took Vox to task fairly early on in the pandemic. I feel like a New York Times reporter or two was ensnared in some mean tweets. What was it like coming to Balaji as a representative of a media organization and talking about his view of eliminating information gatekeepers?
It was a little awkward, I have to admit. Balaji very much believes in the rise of citizen journalism, and he thinks that serious disruption it's already come for our industry, but he really sees it becoming much more fragmented. I think it's important to listen to heterodox voices and to hear things that you might not want to hear, listen to things that you might not want to hear, because that's how you prepare for the future, and that's how you prepare for change. His critique of the media, I hate to say it, he has a point. I think that, particularly with the way that Twitter has incentivized dunking, and it has incentivized, takedowns, and you're going to really own the tech bros. It has sort of had these perverse consequences. It's interesting that he does not, he does in fact lay some of the blame for what's happened at the feet of tech, and not just at the media itself. But I do think that he has a valid criticism. I mean, in fairness, adversarialism is a press tradition dating back probably centuries. And so, that is an important characteristic of the media. Obviously we should not genuflect toward the tech sector. I mean, important reporting was done on things like Theranos, by a fiercely independent press. So, but he does have a point in that there is this sort of sadism out there. And it's not just tech that is the target of it. I mean, if you look at just like how media picks on ordinary people, some pastry chef who posted some goofy QAnon theories online, all of a sudden becomes an unwanted celebrity. There is a point that there is this sort of bullying aspect to the media itself. So, from his perspective, he was going to get bullied, and he bullied right back. And I don't know if I would 100% condone that, but I can definitely fathom where he's coming from.
Gotcha. So what's next for Balaji? This was a big year for him in terms of public profile. From your conversations in the piece, what do you expect to be the next big thing that Balaji comes out with?
It's going to be really interesting to watch. He played it pretty close to the vest when I asked him what's next. I mean, I know that he's sort of had a lot of a lot of irons on the fire. He's been making angel investments I think there was one that was just announced today that I saw on my Twitter feed. So I think it's going to be really interesting. I know that he is definitely very much bullish on crypto and bullish on blockchain. So even though he does have this sort of very diverse set of interests, I suspect that you know, one of the next things he does is going to be in the crypto space, because he's clearly been thinking a lot about blockchains. He's clearly been thinking a lot about you know, how you know, perhaps taking scientific data and putting it on chain could address some of the sort of epistemic issues that we saw in 2020. So I think he's definitely going to be part of the CoinDesk story, and you know, the narrative that we document in the years to come, for sure.
So Mark, we're going to switch virtual chairs, and the interviewed will become the interviewer. Sorry, interviewee will become the interviewer. So we're going to call on our colleague Anna, who I think is here with us now. I'm going to bow out for a bit, and I'm going to let you two talk about her most influential piece. See you.
All right, thanks, Zach. All right, Anna Baydakova, live from Moscow. Are you there?
Hi, Mark. I'm here.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
How cold is it in Moscow right now?
It's like, I got a habit of thinking in Celsius, so it's -5 in Celsius. It's quite freezing, I must tell you. You like you need a really puffy coat.
Okay, this is CoinDesk winter soldier here, Anna Baydakova from Moscow. Anna, so you had a really interesting profile for our series about the Bitcoin protesters. Who are these people? Where are they? What do they want? And what are they doing with Bitcoin?
Right. I would say that maybe it was like the most untypical in our most influential series of profiles, right? Because it's not actually a one person and a one character, a story of one personality, but it's kind of a collective portrait of people around the globe who used Bitcoin and crypto to help other people, to raise money for civic cases, for charity cases, to support important progressive political agendas or free press in their countries. And I think it's really like it really is an important shift in narrative, as I feel it. You know, this is a very special kind of adoption when crypto is finally coming to people who you can say they need it most, because what they are doing, they cannot do by other means. Like, there are many ways of managing your wealth, right? Other than crypto, other than Bitcoin. There are many things of, protecting your wealth or like getting richer. But when you have the traditional mainstream financial routes censored, when your bank accounts are monitored by an oppressive regime and blocked, crypto actually becomes a lifeline that you can use to help other people, to support your operation. And this is what these people did. And they did it in a great scale. For example, the Belarusian nonprofit fund called BuySol, which means Belarusian Solidarity. They helped people who lost their jobs because, they expressed their political stance. They protested on the streets, and they ran afoul of the ruling regime, and they lost their jobs. So BuySol is sending them money in Bitcoin, so they can, kind of take a break and maybe start a new life, after they lost job. Maybe they can learn some new skills to get a new job, or maybe they can just pay for a couple months of rent and stay afloat. And they distributed more than $2 million in crypto to people who lost jobs during this time in Belarus.
Yeah, Anna, can you help me understand when these people who are sort of in these desperate situations receive Bitcoin? I'm assuming that their local store where they have to buy food, or the utility where they have to pay electricity can't is not going to accept Bitcoin. They're going to accept the local currency. So it must be a challenge to convert that Bitcoin, even if there's nothing standing in the way of you receiving Bitcoin, you still have to swap it for something else day to day, right?
Right. I mean, yes and no. The local grocery stores obviously do not accept crypto. So when they get Bitcoin, it's not that they can go and spend it. So the activists are not just sending them crypto, they are also giving them an instruction how to install a crypto wallet on their mobile phone and use it. So when they get crypto, in most cases, they convert it to fiat money right away, selling it peer-to-peer via a protocol built into the crypto wallet. So this wallet connects them to a peer-to-peer marketplace, and so they sell their crypto to somebody else, and somebody else is sending them a bank wire from one bank account directly to another bank account. So it works a little bit like local Bitcoins built into your crypto wallet, something like that. And then they can use the fiat money on their bank account.
Now, the other question I would have is, Bitcoin in particular, particularly when there's high amounts of volume on the network. Sometimes sending a Bitcoin transfer isn't as cheap as it used to be in the old days. I guess these are people who don't have many other options in the way of choice, though. Is that right?
Yes, true.
Interesting. So go on.
Yeah, but sorry. So the question is, what they're gonna do with that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, there are not many LAs to do so. They just deal with methods that got handy.
And is it mostly Bitcoin, or are these protest movements availing themselves of any other cryptocurrencies?
Well, right now it's Bitcoin just because it's the most widespread crypto. I think they might think of switching to maybe to stable coins in the future, but it's not the case right now. I think they're using Bitcoin because it has the most liquidity and is the easiest, the most widespread crypto.
Interesting. So how did you get in touch with these protest movements? I mean, I got to imagine some of them would have been reluctant to talk to the media just because of the sensitive situations they're in.
Well, some of them are quite open to speak to the media, and they're public, like the Belarusian protesters. Another movement, the Feminist Coalition in Nigeria, was kind of more cautious and actually not quite willing to speak because they're in quite a tricky political situation. They're under a lot of pressure right now. And so it's a different situation. I think the difference is partly that the BySol founders are now, well, some of them are abroad, not in the country itself, so they can speak freely while they support this, this activity. When you're inside of the country where the ruling regime is oppressing you, it's much harder to speak when you're in, outside and can enjoy some more freedom.
Of course, we should all be very thankful for the freedoms that we have. Anna, thank you so much for making the time. Fascinating story. I encourage everyone out there in the audience to read Anna's article about the Bitcoin protesters. Thanks for joining us today. We are going to throw it back to my colleague, Ben, now.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, for your excellent story and for the interview with Anna. That was great. Yeah, we're going to talk to a couple of the artists now who created the artworks for Most Influential. Joining us are Sarah Zucker and Matt Kane. And I just want to say something about Sarah Zucker that I thought was interesting. As well as being a terrific artist, she's a former Jeopardy contestant, so I thought that was interesting. What was it like being on Jeopardy, Sarah?
It was as exciting as 22 minutes can be. Or I guess in my case, 44 minutes, because I did win, which is great.
That's a unique honor. Congratulations.
Thank you.
One of the reasons why we wanted to work with you guys, because you're the kind of top of the field in the NFT space, and it seems like NFTs have really been taking off this year. There was one artwork from Trevor Jones, who was an artist who did Most Influential last year, that went for, I think, more than $55,000. So it seems like these prices for NFTs have been going up. I mean, what do you think is behind that trend? I mean, is this COVID related, that people can't go to galleries and look at normal art, or is this more of a long-term trend, do you think?
What do you think, Matt? Yeah,
sure.
I think you're the one to speak to this.
Sure. Yeah, the piece right behind me is actually a piece that sold for 262 Ethereum, which was about $101,000, which was the first crypto artwork to surpass the six-figure mark. I tend to think it is COVID related. It's COVID's just sort of been quickening everything, and people have been, especially for artists, though, NFTs have established a way for digital art to be collected for the first time. For the first time, we have like proven provenance with digital artwork, because before blockchain and NFTs, Sarah and I were kind of running around with like our heads were chopped off, thinking about, are we going to have to use like a thumb drive, like that's gold encrusted, to convince an art collector, to buy this in a traditional art gallery? And so what we and the other crypto artists have been doing is, creating a market around, especially around digital art, and how to establish ownership of these works.
Great. What do you think, Sarah?
I think, yeah, I've been talking about this a little bit as of late, that, with COVID, everyone has had to go online. So those of us that are sort of, digital native people or internet people, like the rest of the world is running to us like, oh, dear God, how do we be online all the time? So, I know both Matt and I were involved in the crypto art scene in 2019. And it's always funny to me when people come to us like we're the wise elders of this space. And, for me, I've been involved in this less than 2 years, but in 2019, it was like a completely different scene, a completely different thing. It was very niche. It was very like, those of us that were sort of the Poindexters, like that were like just getting very into the technicality of it and the possibility of it. And then, it really gained traction at the end of 2019, I would say. But it was definitely the emergence of COVID that I think started to get people from outside the cryptocurrency space seeing this thing and going, what are they up to over there? Like Matt said, for digital artists, I think for a lot of us, this has been sort of the obligatory moment, I would call it. We've been waiting for years to have the technology to create, verifiable assets out of our digital artworks. But really, it was the entire world being forced to go online that I think got people to turn to us and go, whoa, what are you guys doing over here? This seems to be very important now in a moment where everything has to be virtual.
Right. It's maybe a difficult question, but how do you approach a digital artwork like this versus a more standard artwork? Are you looking to take a different approach because it's published online in this format?
Yeah. I used to be a traditional artist that did oil paintings. I've created my own software because I was a web engineer for 7 years, and I decided, well, I'm just going to, make my own Photoshop because Photoshop doesn't do what I need it to do. Yeah. So my approach to these portraits, I knew the individuals, who they were, and so I researched them a bit more. And I wanted to, it happens to be that these are individuals who sort of stand for things that I value and have fit into a current series that I do that explores historical aesthetics of fiat currency. And so I'm sort of asking the question with the works, what if we put messages on our money? And when we transacted value, we were transacting like those values rather than just this cult of personality where we have George Washington's head, you know, on what if we actually put, you know, messages of people who are looking into the future and forward thinking.
I'm sure Balaji will be interested to know he's like George Washington. Sarah, you did, let me see here, let me remember. Sarah, you did Juan Bonet and Linda Lacewell, and your pieces are on the Nifty Gateway. And Matt, you did Balaji Srinivasan and Jesse Powell, and your work is actually going to be on Super Rare. And do you want to just talk about the auction process and how that works and how people can be involved? Sarah?
Sure. Yeah, for my pieces, you know, I really wanted, I similar to Matt, chose people who I researched them and I thought the work they do speaks to me. You know, they're people I admire, and so I really wanted to create these almost like icons. Like I was thinking almost like religious icons, though obviously not religious, but similar to Matt, I have a background in photography that has translated itself now to digital art. And why I personally work so much with analog video is it allows me almost like that painterly effect if I'm working with physical circuits. And for me, that's important when we're creating these digital artworks, you know, to give them this sense of virtual physicality. So I'm very excited that this is actually my very first release on Nifty Gateway. And I'm part of this, you know, cohort of a few artists, people I'm sure that you'll all be familiar with. And we are releasing these as single editions on Nifty Gateway. It's going to be a nice long auction so that people can really, I think it will honor these subjects. You know, I want people to look into them, to understand why they're being honored, why they've been treated as the icons they are. And even more exciting is that each artist has agreed to donate 50% of the proceeds to a charity of their choice. In my case, that's the Rainforest Foundation. It's a cause that's near and dear to my heart, supporting both the rainforest and the indigenous communities that are sort of the frontline workers in a certain sense, the people who are most intimately connected to the rainforest.
Great, it's a great cause. Matt, do you want to talk about your auction?
Sure. My auction will be on Super Rare, and you can find them at superrare.co. The auction will begin in about 15 minutes. You'll begin to be able to start bidding. The auction will end on Friday at approximately 3 p.m. Eastern time. Super Rare is doing something very interesting where they're ending it on block completion on the Ethereum blockchain rather than an exact time. So it's good to bid early if you're interested in these pieces. And I'll be donating 50% to the International Medical Corps. I thought they were especially worthy of a charitable donation this year because they'll have their hands full with COVID, and now we have these vaccinations coming. And they also go into areas and they train individuals, so they don't just bring boxes. They also train the communities to help them become more self-sufficient. Great,
another good cause. Yeah, so most of the artwork is going to be on Nifty Gateway, but Matt chose to use Super Rare instead, and he has a slightly shorter auction time than the Nifty Gateway cohort, which actually runs to the end of the year, so from now into 31st of December. Great. Well, thanks very much for doing this, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
I think we're going to throw it back to Zach now, if he's going to come back on. Hey, Zach.
Hey, guys. I'm back. How's it going?
Good.
I was just looking at the stories. I was actually just reading some stories, man. They look good. They look sharp.
Good. What do we have to say to wrap up? We want everyone to go and read the stories, check out the videos, check out the art, go to the auction pages, put up some ETH for the auction. 50% of everything you give will go to some very worthy charities, and it's holiday time, so it's time to put your hand in your metaphorical pocket here.
It's a nice stocking stuffers. You get the NFT, you just put it in the stocking on Christmas morning. The kids will love it. It'll be great. Yeah, I just want to say, CoinDesk.com/most-influential/2020. You can find all the stories being tweeted out right now on the CoinDesk handle. Congratulations to all the reporters and writers who crafted some really compelling stories on top of all the crazy madness that everyone is covering day in, day out. So shout out to the CoinDesk newsroom team, as always, for putting out top-notch work yet again. So I think that's all I got. A big doff of the cap to you, Sir Ben, for making sure that this package came out so wonderfully. So thanks for all your effort in making this stand out.
It couldn't happen without you, man.
It could. I'm merely a small piece in the newsroom machine of Most Influential, and this was really impressive. And I think the stories really speak for themselves this year.
Great. Well, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. See ya.